Joker Folie Deux. It's now been confirmed that it is indeed going to be a musical. This may come as news to some people. It may come as like, oh yeah, they said this like years ago or months ago, but it was always kind of nebulous because we initially got reports that yeah, it is going to be a musical, and then there were like some contradictory reports from some people involved in the project. They were like, well, no, it's not exactly a musical, but like now it looks like there's reports out there. We've got quotes from Zazie Beets. We have had the composer of the movie kind of talk about it, and we know it's basically going to be a musical. So, John, let me ask you: is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? I mean, of course, we got Lady Gaga in there. We know Joaquin Phoenix. If it comes down to it, he can probably sing a little, and dancing certainly is not going to be a problem if you're to go by the first movie. So, what do you think about the fact that in 2024, Joker Folie Deux is going to hit theaters and it's indeed going to be a musical?
I think it's certainly going to make it a lot more interesting. I think Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix wouldn't have come back if they didn't have some good ideas for this. And I think a musical could definitely make it stranger, and but for the best for a good
Yeah,
reason.
yep.
And I think like if they follow stuff like what was the name of that? Repo the Genetic Opera. That's like sort of that weird, dark, unhinged creep factor. I think if they do something like that, that could be really interesting. I've also heard reports that it's going to be like extremely violent, so I feel like that can feed into Arthur's like psychosis and like how he views the world as someone who is mentally ill. He can like they can almost make the musical aspects make sense in his head. Like the
I
world becomes like this musical, and then he's sharing the screen with Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, and they can. I feel like they can really make it somehow go even weirder. I'm not the biggest fan of musicals, but I'm so curious with how they're going to do this. And I feel like there are so many different opportunities to make that way more interesting, more unhinged, more weird, more strange, and definitely creepier. And I think they could really make that work in sort of that musical world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this is a movie that the first film nobody saw it coming. Makes $1 billion, 11 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Joaquin Phoenix gets the award for Best Actor, the first time any superhero movie has won one of those big acting awards at the Oscars, and it just like blew everybody away. And you mentioned to me before we started taping something that I was blown away by, which I think a lot of people don't appreciate because a lot of people don't know this. The first Joker movie made more money than The Force Awakens, and
Yes.
that's like crazy to think about. The
Yeah.
fact that it outgrows Force Awakens. But we got a quote from Zazie Beets on this, and Zazie Beets mentioned we all sort of express musically and dancing in our day-to-day lives. I think it's going to work really, really well, and I think people will be surprised. I don't think it's going to be what they expect around it being musical. So we have seen already some exciting, previews from Zazie Beetz' character it was kind of weird how things play out in the first movie. It certainly was very unexpected, kind of like a M Night Shyamalan esque sort of a way in which her character's story arc sort of goes. I'm excited to see how this movie plays out now. I haven't really seen Lady Gaga do a true musical before, if I'm thinking correctly, because I know she's done movies where she's singing and obviously all that stuff. But like,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but has Lady Gaga really done like a musical before? Which is surprising to me that she hasn't. If she hasn't.
I mean, the term musical is kind of very loose. If you count A Star Is Born as a musical, then technically yes. But in terms of like people, like something like West Side Story, like if you count that, if that's like the musical go to, I don't think she has. I'm not incredibly familiar with her acting career outside of A Star Is Born, so I don't think she's done any like big ostentatious musicals or anything like that. So that'll certainly be really interesting. And I think her and Phoenix could definitely, if their chemistry is just right, they could definitely make that work.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that concerns me about this movie, thinking about like maybe the potential downside of this film, is that this movie was is being made for like $150 million, which is virtually twice the first movie's budget. The first movie was being made for around 80 million. And even
Mhm.
then, Warner Brothers only put up around 40 million of that. Like they had another production company kind of come in and put in the rest of that 80 million. So they really mitigated the risk on their part because they had no idea how much money it would make. And of course, became a runaway hit. The second movie, they're bringing back Todd Phillips, they're bringing back Joaquin Phoenix, and those guys are getting big pay raises. Of course, Lady Gaga probably gets a big pay out of this, as she deserves
Mhm.
to. And that raises the budget of this from 80 to 115 million. And I'm sure they're going to put more into the marketing of this movie, knowing how big of a hit the first one was. So there is a lot more of a financial risk behind the second movie than the first. So the one thing that concerns me is this sequel going to really live up to what the first movie was able to accomplish? Because if it, or certainly financially at least, right? Like critical reception, it could be just as good, if not better. But was the first movie a singular success, and is that going to translate well into the second one? I know that they've kind of put all the chips into, you add Lady Gaga in, you make it a musical. What else can you do to attract an audience and repeat that $1 billion success? But I really hope that they've done all they can to kind of mitigate the risk, because $150 million, you've seen plenty of movies in recent times, especially from DC, that have had those kinds of budgets and have not been able to recover that money.
Right.
And then just to kind of mention this other thing, we know now that this is a DC Elseworlds project. This is something that we have not seen before. DC, of course, has throughout its history done movies that are sort of standalones. The Dark Knight trilogy being probably the best example of that. The Batman, the new series under Matt Reeves, is sort of its standalone. But Joker, Folie, Deux is going to be the first of these movies that is going to get released under the DC Elseworlds banner, which is a big thing
Mhm.
in the comics, has been for decades. But what do you think about the idea that now we're getting these DC Elseworlds projects, and how does that, play into the psyche of the average fan, whether it's a DC fan or just going to the movies and you're like, oh, there's a new DC movie coming out, but it's not part of the big DCU. It's a DC Elseworlds project. How do you think that's going to do as like just this banner for doing, these creative tangential projects that don't tie into the larger continuity, and it gives filmmakers a lot of freedom to do what they want to do? Is this going to be a big boon for DC, or do you think this is just a lot more risky, considering that you don't have the benefit of like a brand like a DCU or the MCU behind it, and the what would you call it, like the brand loyalty that maybe that provides? Like without that, these standalone DC Elseworlds projects, do you think they're going to succeed, or are they going to struggle to kind of um, make money and be successful on their own?
I think when it comes to superhero like fatigue, it could go either way. It could go like, oh, it's DC. I don't want to see it. I'm too tired of DC and Marvel. I'm tired of this. It could go that way. I'm hopeful it doesn't, because I love superhero movies as much as the next guy. However, I think, and I'm hopeful for that, it will go positively, because they'll see it's like, oh, I don't have to watch 10 movies and 5 TV shows to understand this movie. Oh, all right, I'm in. Let's go. And then if we're talking about like specifically Joker, Folie, Deux, a lot of people love the first one, so like, okay, let's do this. A lot of people love the Batman, so that I don't know what other Elseworld stories they have in mind, but that opens the door for this. And I know while Marvel has dipped their toe in that, like with What If, Multiverse of Madness, and that kind of thing, I think if DC really goes into the standalone features of Elseworld stories, and really, because I feel like that's where that's what DC's bread and butter is: standalone stories, focusing on characters. And I feel like if they really go into that with the Elseworlds banner, they could again, they could have another boom. I think that could really be beneficial for DC and showcase what they can do as a brand.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the movie, I hope that it makes another $1 billion. I think that would be fantastic to
Yes.
see a DC movie. It's been a while since we have gotten one of those. Whether it was the last Joker movie or the first Aquaman, who knows what the second Aquaman is going to do? And yeah, for all we know, the next DC movie that makes $1 billion, especially in the new DCU, maybe like a long time away, because we don't know if the first Superman movie, Superman Legacy, is going to do that. We don't know if Batman
Right.
Brave and the Bold is going to do that. Maybe the Batman Part Two does it. But as far as Joker Folie Deux goes, I'm excited to see what they do with this. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
musicals. I've grown up being a fan of musicals, and there's not every musical is hits with me, but as with every movie, it's all very subjective. So we'll see. Let's see how this thing turns out. I'm excited to see the first trailer for it. I know they're mostly done filming it. If not, I think they might be completely done filming it unless they go do reshoots. And so even through the strikes in Hollywood, I think they've been working on post production in this film. And Todd Phillips is somebody who's, the last Joker movie, it was an Oscar nominated movie for Best Picture. So you got to trust the man. He knows what he's doing. And so I'm excited to
Definitely.
see where this movie goes. There's a potential for there to be a trilogy if the second one succeeds, but if this one fails, or like if it really bombs, then I'm sure they'll probably leave it there because it
Yeah.
was hard enough to convince Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix to come back for a sequel. And if it doesn't deliver the goods, that I doubt that they're going to want to come back for a third one. I think Joaquin Phoenix
Yeah.
at this point in his career, he's chasing those awards, like whether it's Napoleon or like that first Joker movie.
Yeah.
He's probably not only going to want to be involved if the project holds potential. So let's see how this plays out. I'm excited that it is officially a musical. I'm excited to see
Yeah.
Zazie Beets, Lady Gaga, the musical talents they bring to the table. Let's see what kind of dancing moves, the new moves that Joaquin Phoenix can pull out for us. Guys, let us know in the comments below what you think about Joker Folie. It's coming out next year after Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It's going to be the next DC movie on deck. It's going to be like that movie that kind of holds us over till Superman Legacy starts up the new DCU. So let us know in the comments what you think about it. And of course, like and subscribe for more content like this on DCU Daily. We are here Monday to Friday. And now, of course, we've got John on the team. And so John and I, we're going to be talking all about DC all throughout the week, every week. And you can check back here for the latest news, updates, breaking news, reviews, previews, everything to do with DC and the DCU. We will be here talking about it. And until next time, it's been good talking to you guys all about DC. And go out there and do some DC reading, DC watching. I'm sure there's a bunch you can watch on streaming. Go out into the theaters, see Blue Beetle maybe one more time, or you can find The Flash on Max. And of course, looking forward to watching Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in theaters. So until next time, guys, we will be seeing you here on DC Daily.